Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Aligning with Success call. It is August the 14th, mid-month. Oh my gosh, where does time go? Right? If I could ask everybody to mute themselves, and when you want to talk, then you can unmute, but that would just avoid all the feedback. Thank you very much. Before we get started, I wanted to see, a number of you were on the call last week. And we talked about some fundamentals, principle, and going back to basic. For those who were on the call, what may be, what you heard last week, although there was nothing new, but what you heard last week, how did that impacted how you communicated with your prospect or the consultant in the last week? What maybe did you get out, and how did that affect you in your business last week? I'd like to get some input here from a few of you. Who would like to share? Very quiet group. No one?
I'll start.
Go ahead.
So there were a lot of small ahas, and I think it was just, again, reminders of things we already know. One was feeling comfortable and remembering how key the sleep system was for my life and for the people that I shared it with right out of the gate, and feeling good about talking about that as a key component as we move forward, engaging with other people. And I had an appointment with someone at the end of the week, and I shifted my language and felt good about it, because I know that even if the funds were not accessible, it was the right thing for that person's future and health. So that was one thing that I got. And another thing was the idea of solutions versus products and income versus business. So small shifts that I took away from last week's call that I integrated last week.
You're muted, Bernadette.
Sorry, Madeline. That's wonderful, wonderful, Suzanne. I'm glad to hear that. Someone else.
Well, I'll comment. I like the solutions also, and actually on the marketing tomorrow night, Randy and I are going to be sharing an event between our two wellness homes, and on the promotion I did locally for the Zoom part that we're going to do, I use solutions as well. I'm actually using the term more often. But I think one thing I came away with both last Monday and again at the Launch Partners call on Friday was the pre-qualification and the sorting of all the people that we're looking at, those large numbers. And the call that we just came off of, Barb Satterwhite was speaking about why we need so many numbers and tying it into that slide in the business overview with the little seedlings, and sometimes it takes a long time, and Ben's comment that from the 5th time to the 8th time to the 10th time that you contact someone, and that's common in sales. And so it's really connecting points that there's lots of people, and so they may not be ready right now, and that unless we're really talking to a lot of people and we're asking the questions where we're listening to help sort and to pre-qualify on readiness. And for me, I like to start with presenting. So the reminder of sorting and listening and asking for those questions and having more on the list. I have the more everywhere, but again, that I think the other piece is that using that list and the organization and the calendar along with it. So it's just putting all those pieces together. And the calls last week, Monday night followed by Tuesday followed by Friday, it's that repetition of key points that we all need and we're more ready for. And it followed through on our Platinum Alliance call today as well. So having this forum and the connection between the dots has been very helpful for the repetition.
It's great. You know, you just mentioned something, Madeline, which is about presenting. And that is sometimes a mistake that a lot of consultants that we see in the field are making. We present before even understanding what the person is needing and wanting. You know, I would say that to everybody who is on the line right now and those who are going to watch this as a replay, we all have an expertise, even though you may not see yourself as an expertise in NICAN, but we all know things others don't, right? So we have that expertise. But frankly, that expertise really doesn't matter unless the people we talk to want it. Because one also, a lot of time, a mistake that we make, we feel that because we know something that is good, people need it. Yes, they do, but it doesn't matter if they don't want it. So what we need to realize is it's not about presenting NICAN and talking about our expertise. It's not even about talking to what people need. It's first of all to know what people want and provide a solution to what they want, knowing that our job is to use that expertise to show them what they need. So it's a little bit going a little bit, and I'm hoping this makes all sense to you guys, because too often because we know that NICAN is so good, whether we're talking about health, whether we're talking about income opportunity, that we feel that everybody needs it. Yeah, everybody could use it, no doubt about it, but it doesn't matter if they don't want it, right? So it's about always looking into putting ourselves in the shoes of the person we're talking to. What is it that they want? And showing them that what they want is where our expertise comes from and that where we can help them, right? Very, very important. Now, for tonight's call, I'd like to shift. You know, we've been talking about products, the product of NICAN. We're talking about learning how to talk to people, how to become a best consultant a lot of time. Now, one thing that I've learned, and I know that a lot of you know this, but a lot of time we forget, is to become the best to what we do is we need to learn the skills, correct? But is that really all what we need? We actually need to pay as much attention to our professional skills, but we need to pay as much, if not more, attention to our personal development. Because the bottom line is professional skills, you know, skills in NICAN, it's not complicated. It may take a bit of time, depending on who we are, where we're coming from, and all that. But what we do in NICAN is really not complicated. I know sometimes not everybody, sometimes we feel, oh my gosh, it's a lot more complicated. It's really not when we really bring into the essential. But it's a matter of what is it here that governs our attitude? It's this, isn't it? So, but a lot of time, unfortunately, I see that people are paying more attention to teach me how. How do I talk to? How do I make contact? How do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do that? And they forget how much it is important to look at where it's coming from, which is this. So our personal development. So as I'd like to ask, you know, some of you, whoever is ready to answer this, is how much do you really work on yourself in your attitude on a day-to-day basis, on a weekly basis? Because if this is not in the right place, it doesn't matter what we teach in terms of the professional skills. If we don't have the right attitude and we look at the possibilities versus the obstacle, the skills, the how-to don't matter. Right? So I'm curious how, you know, who would like to share, you know, what do you do as an investment in yourself on a day-to-day basis, on a weekly basis, to help you be and start, you know, your day, and you're approaching people from the right mindset?
Can I say something?
Go ahead.
what I'm finding is that when you come from a place of humility, and in order to stay humble, pride is like a spring jacket. You put it on and you don't even know you have it on. And if you come from a place of humility, it's easier to serve someone. It's easier to find out what they want. And working on humility is not a lot of fun, and it has to be a daily thing. And for me, my own personal, I have to take time before I even see anybody else on the planet to just, I read, I pray, you know, that's the choice I make. And I have to do that every day. If it means I have to get up at 4 a.m, I get up at 4 a.m. It is a totally different day if I don't do that. And the more I'm humble and I'm not even thinking about, oh, how can I help? That's that law of attraction when someone will say, hey, can I talk to you a minute? I'm not even thinking about it. It's just, I guess it's an aura or something. I don't even know. But it's not difficult. It's simple. And it's not easy, but it's a choice, like making a healthy choice. It's a choice that you make every day. And the more I do that, the better the day goes. And I'm not in control of it. You know, you have to get this to a place where you realize it's not about me, and I'm not in control of it anyway. So that's what works for me.
Okay, excellent. Someone else? No? Well, I'll tell you how I start my day. Every day, how I start my day, I start first to take care of myself. And I start at 7 a.m. I do my exercise, literally half an hour exercise, just to bring that energy to unlock, you know, my physical power and all of that. And I do that for half an hour every single day. And right after that, after I'm all dressed and all of that, I take half an hour and I read. I read a book every single day. Why? Because it's all about putting my energy, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, in the right place. Then I'm ready to attack my day. Because now I'm all about looking at what it is that I want to accomplish, what is the mark that I want to leave on every day. And I really want to ask you is, do you read books? We've heard this so many times. We are how many books we read, and the books we read will incredibly impact who we are and who we become, like who are the people that we associate with. But it's all about investing. And so often I see people putting the cart before the horse by looking at the how versus who they are and where they come from. I always say, everything starts at home. And for me, home is here. Home is here. If I am not a prime example of what I'm teaching, whether I'm talking about my physical well-being, my mental well-being, how can I expect other people to feel what's coming out of me? And how can I expect people to follow my lead? And that is, so, I have to, right now, what we decided to do with my team is we pick a book once a month and we study. So part of my course with my team is half of the time is on the personal development, half of the time is on the professional development. Because Nikken is all about balance. It's all about balancing, balancing the product aspect, balancing the business aspect. Well, to succeed, I firmly believe that we need to balance the personal development and the professional development. You can't go just one way. And it's not a matter of becoming, a student and a permanent student, because I always say, some of you have heard me, is if knowledge is not used, it's wasted. Really believe that. So it's important that whatever we study, we apply it. And how we apply it by doing things. And that's when the professional skills happen. And that's when we put things in motion, every day. I don't know if any of you have heard or read this book, but I highly recommend it. It's Freedom from Fear. It's a great book. Easy read, guys. Big fonts. So for those who may not be used of reading books, I do. I have tons of books. But for those of you who are not reading, it's big fonts. It's not a big book. It's about 100 pages. So you're going to go through it quickly. But my gosh, what's in that book is phenomenal. And frankly, it's not about Nikken. It's about making our life. It's about giving our power back to us, taking it back. Highly recommend it.
Who is the author, please, Bernadette?
Sure.
Mark Madison.
Mark Madison.
Thank you.
And for those of you, say you can get it on Amazon or on that, and I would recommend it, take it ASAP. You know, I've had that book for many years, and I go back to it because we always need refresher. The best of us, we need refresher constantly, right? We can't expect. And myself, I don't read a book. I study the books. You know, if you see my books, I have highlights, I have, stickies, I have things, I take notes. I mean, because there's always something. And every time I pick it up, there's something else that jumps at me. And only then I apply it. And by the way, I don't know if you do that. Myself, I don't just read a book. I don't even just study a book. If I read or study a book, it's with the intent of teaching it. And I find that, when we do this, when we go with that intention of teaching what we learn about, then we own it. And that is something that I would highly recommend. Don't just read a book. People say, well, I read it. Okay. What did you get out of it? Well, no, I don't know. What did you get out of it? And how are you going to use it? And then own it. I highly recommend to look at, when you study, always to do it that way. Read it, study it with the intention of teaching it. Because then you'll really own it. And what you're going to get out of it is just so much more than what you expect, and go back to it. So if any of you is curious enough to pick up that book and read it this week, if you can, I'd love to hear some of your feedback next week. Maybe we could talk about that. So personal development is very important. That's why the coaching, in Nikken, we talk always about the coach and the mentor. And I know we have wonderful coach and wonderful mentor that are available through this call, the leadership call. There's other calls out there. But do you have a coach or mentor who you work with on a more personal basis in Nikken? Because a lot of time, there's working closely with someone makes an enormous difference, because that person, by knowing you and trusting you will find out that it's going to accelerate your results. It's going to challenge your thinking, your old habits. We're all creatures of habits, myself included. We don't even realize sometimes how much of creature of habits we are. And it's someone else from the outside who needs to point that out to us, right? And the best of the best are those who always have coaches and mentors. To me, it's all about a growing process, a learning process. How can I become better, more effective in everything that I do? And in Nikken, I think that's and I really believe that in Nikken, my gosh, we're so fortunate because we have some of the best that we can find in the industry. So if you don't have a coach or a mentor who you really work with closely, I have a question for you. Why not? Why not? Or you mentioned about, being humble. And I love what you said, because I really believe that humility is something very important. As leaders, we want to have that quality. But first of all, it's understanding that I always have something to learn. Always. And if I knew it already, I probably would do. But there's so much, we don't know what we don't know, and we don't know how we can get better at it. It's like, look at where your business is right now, where you are right now in Nikken, And what we've learned before is what got us where we are today. Right? For us to break through, because I know that's what everybody on this group, on this call wants, to break through and increase our business and get bigger business, better leader, all of this, we can have incremental, changes and so on that are important. But unless someone is out there to point out or to challenge those old habits, those old thinking, can we really have the breakthrough we're looking for in the time frame that we're looking for? And it's many of you know this book, which is Good to Great, which is a great book, really great book. And one thing that is mentioned in that book is good is the enemy of great. And I so believe in that, because good, when we become good, we become unconsciously complacent, unconsciously satisfied with where we are at. And we're comfortable. I say, I'm good. I'm good. But then somehow, once in a while, for some of us, we say, yeah, it's good. But you know what? I know I can do better. I know there's more of me out there. There's more. But because we just keep following that good, we just don't have that breakthrough. So to become great, we have to become uncomfortable again. And it's not easy to become uncomfortable, right? It's not easy. For nobody, it's easy. I've had those, and I know that myself, I know that every time I feel comfortable, I say, okay, girl, it's time to grow up again. I say that to myself all the time. It's time to grow up again. You've become a little bit too comfortable. So what it is that you need to do. So that's why the coach and the mentor is very important. So I'd love to hear from you guys. I really would like this call to be a very interactive call, and ask yourself, and be honest with yourself and share with the group is, if some of you have had mentors, how did that impacted you? If some of you never had coach or mentors, just maybe share why you feel that you don't have one, or why you felt that maybe it's not the right time for you. Because it's all about reevaluating, reassessing ourselves from time to time so we can go further to the next level. Any comment, any ahas from any of you?
Could I say something?
Absolutely.
I think that what you're saying is awesome. It really is. I think we have to learn to listen when we choose a mentor or read a book, or like we're listening to you right now. We have to learn to listen. It's easy to sit and watch and think you're listening, but you're not really listening. You have to learn to listen. I think you really do.
You're absolutely right. Listening is a big piece, because, and by the way, I will tell you something. It was years ago, I had somebody, and I'm not going to mention who that was, who was fairly high ranked in Nikken, and she called me and she said, Bernadette, I'm thinking of having a mentor. What do you think? And I said to her, if you're asking me, I do believe you're not ready. Because if you were ready, you would not ask anybody. You would just go and ask that person. And because then also she said, and I'm thinking of what you think. I say, you shouldn't have to ask me who. You know who. and that also is very important. So it's about, because the coach or the mentor, I think it's a two-way street. Yeah. It's a very much a two-way street. It's not just teaching. I'm not interested. It's about trust, honesty, accountability. It's about understanding that the coach and mentor has your best interest at heart. They really want to see you grow and become a better version of yourself. And unless we trust that and we have that confidence, the coaching and the mentoring is not going to work. I really believe that, right? Then it's so important. But it's also somebody who, myself, when I said to me, by the way, when you're ready, don't find somebody who makes you comfortable. Because that means that person, if that person makes you comfortable, they're not going to be able to poke at you, right? And because then you're going to feel again, it's somebody who you have deep trust and who you know is going to, and you're allowing them to poke at you from time to time. And your response is to understand that if they do that, again, is because they want to see you grow. They're not going to poke at you simply because they want to poke at you. They know it's because they believe that you can grow. You can be that better version of yourself. Yeah. Very important. So the listening goes both ways. You know, it's about listening, it's about understanding, it's about communication. Communication is so critical. Communicating with our prospect is important. Communicating with our team is important. Communicating is fundamental. It's not about saying words, because you know, if we're not communicating, it's like, for example, when I talk to my team and we do our events and our public events, I say, by the way, it's not about being the best presenter. That I don't care if you're the polished presenter. I don't care. What I want to see is that you're connecting and communicating with the audience. That is important. So this is some of the things that the coach and mentor can help you. Anyone else?
Bernadette, I have a question. This is Mrs. Kramer in Jerusalem.
Yes.
This was worth getting up early for.
Thank you.
How do I get rid of the idea that the people that I would like to have as mentors are too busy? How could they possibly find time to mentor me, because they're so busy building their business, and how are they going to have time?
Well, that's a great question. That's a great question, you know, and I really believe, first of all, it's, you know, the obstacle that we have are usually obstacles that we put in our own head, right? And
say it again, please.
Obstacles that we have in front of us a lot of time are obstacles that we create ourselves.
Oh, sure.
That we put in our own head, right? I will tell you this, years and years ago, I was a gold. And I was an INIC, and I was looking for a mentor, and I knew exactly who I wanted that person, my mentor. There was one person, no one else. I just knew immediately who that was. And it was on the top, you know, of the ladder. Let's put it that way. I was a brand new girl. And I remember at one big event, but I was determined that was the person I wanted. And exactly as you said, Mrs. Kramer, I say, who am I to ask that person, right? And at the end of the conference, we had those big annual events, and at the end of the conference, I asked him, I said, can I ask you a question? And we stepped out in the hall, and I said to him, I have a question to ask you, and I'm scared to death you're going to say yes. Why did I say that? One, I knew I was ready for a mentor. I knew why him, because I knew I wanted to learn from one of the best. But I was scared to death he would say yes, because I knew he would keep me on my toes. But this is also the reason why I asked him, because I wasn't ready. I wasn't looking for somebody to pat me on my back and say, good girl. I can do that on my own, right? I wanted somebody who would be very upfront with me and would tell me what I needed to hear, not what I wanted to hear. Because what I needed to hear, I knew that was what would help me to grow, right? And that person looked at me and paused and said, okay, what's the question? And I said, will you be my mentor? And without a hesitation, he said yes. And I'll tell you, I was excited, but I was scared to death because I knew now what that meant. But here's the thing. I do believe that, it's a matter of, are we the person, do we behave, are we the person we want to attract? I know that's some of the reason why he said yes is because he knew I was serious. He knew maybe I wasn't a big shot at that time, and I wasn't at that time, right? But I was serious about it. I was accountable. I would do what I said, and I say what I do, and I do what I say. And that's what a mentor and a coach is looking for, guys. Will you say what you do, and will you do what you say? Because if we don't do that, the coaching and the mentoring is pointless. It's a waste of time on both sides. So the other thing is say, it's like, and he is, oh, but they're too busy. I say, how do you know? You're not in the shoes or in the home of your mentor or the person you want. Let them decide. Let them say. And sometimes we see that because maybe we're afraid of getting a no. We're afraid of rejection, isn't it? We're afraid of getting a no. We're afraid of being accountable. We're afraid of, oh my gosh, what if I don't perform? Well, that's, by the way, why, the people who do choose to have a coach and mentor, that's a big step. Because that's the first step to growing up. Right? So, Mrs. Kramer, if you do believe you're ready for a mentor and you don't have one, I say, well, there's only one way to go, is just to go and ask. Literally. Is to go and ask and have a very honest discussion with the person who you would like to be coach or mentor by. And you'll see. I'll be honest with you, for those who I've had some people over the years who asked me to coach and mentor them. Did I take everybody? No. And it's not simply because after our first conversation, it was obvious to me that they were not ready. They were not ready. And my role as a leader is to say, I want to help the people grow. So only those who are ready will I consider them. Otherwise, I'm not being of service to the others. That's my point of view. Not everybody necessarily will agree with that, but that's my point of view. So, but I have to tell you, there's lots of people who can do. And myself, I had coach and mentor from a distance. Before I had one personal coach and mentor, I had coach and mentor for a distance. What does it mean? Is I would, if somebody I related to, I would just watch every webinar or training that they would do, and I would learn from them from a distance. That's another way as well, because that you can do that. And so there's so many ways of working with someone else. Anyone else?
Thank you, Bernadette.
You're welcome.
I'd like to comment, Bernadette.
Yes.
For everybody else, I had the pleasure and the honor of being mentored by Bernadette last year when it was one of the requirements for Team Kaizen. And she is tough. And one of the areas for me is procrastination. So that weekly accountability, I would just sweat bullets before the week was coming up because of what I know I had to do. And the other thing for me is being critical of myself when I didn't achieve whatever that I wanted to achieve. And just in listening tonight, and it's interesting, when the student's ready, the teacher arrives. It was easy to go back to the old behaviors with not having that mentor-protege relationship. And today, Sherry Danzig spoke on the Platinum Alliance about, she shared her experience with a mentor that she's been with a long time and that she's paying. And just on the call before coming on to this one, I'm toying with the time and paying for that mentor because I had one session with him. And there is no question that accountability and being brutally honest is really very important. So it was like it wasn't a requirement anymore. And so then I stopped doing it, finding another replacement after you. So I really see how critical this point is tonight, Bernadette. So thank you.
You're very welcome, Madeline. Now, Madeline, share with the group, because, and it's not about me, but it's about you, your transformation by going through that coaching and mentoring week after week after week. What transformation and how did that help you in your business, in your self-confidence, in anything that you feel that made a difference?
Well, I feel that it did. And and then I can also see where there's been some backsliding. I think I just said that. And so that kind of accountability is critical. And many of us on here are cross-lined to one another. And we were just speaking again on the call before. We've been very good ABCs for one another. We're swim buddies, the term that Jim Perry would use in The Humans Being More. But that's not the same is having somebody that has not really line authority, but that committed relationship where you are really going to trust and you're going to be honest. And if you didn't do something, why didn't you do something? And to really think about it and to have the written assignment for the following week. And I'm going to go back and dig out the notes. I have the whole file. It will be a good benchmark at this. I sent a note out to a few people today with some questions, listening, as I mentioned earlier, from last Monday night to Tuesday to Friday, and just took a time out this weekend to really think. And this has been probably what has really been needed. And maybe for many of us here, not just for me. And so I really, really appreciate this. And one of the things that I felt at the end of the year, which probably also brought me down, is I felt I disappointed Bernadette because I didn't achieve those 3 silvers so that I would have been one of her. For her, she would have won, not Team Kaizen, but whatever the other one was, Team Tai Chi last year. And so in that accountability of saying that I was really going to do what I committed to do, and I felt that pressure. And we talked about that, Bernadette, and she's a very forgiving mentor also, and I cried a lot when she would point out where she saw those little baby steps of moving forward. And so it is really critical. And I really appreciate this tonight.
Excellent. Anyone else who would like to add? Yes, Suzanne.
I have worked with other mentors in the past, and I think it's almost like you have this little your conscience on your shoulder, kind of talking at you, reminding you that, oh, you're supposed to do this, or have you made these 10 calls this week, or whatever it is, or these appointments. And it's one of these, like Madeline was just saying, that, sliding back when you don't have that. If you have a job, you do your job. And you're supposed to do it and you do it. But when you're in this business, you might not have that structure that causes you to do certain things. So the idea of having a mentor and being accountable certainly has made me do certain things and do certain things at a different level, knowing, just like Madeline said, I don't want to disappoint the mentor and myself for not being as committed as I said I was going to do and achieve the things that I said I was going to achieve. In hindsight, it should just be, I should not need a mentor. I should just be able to do what I need to do to achieve what I say I'm going to achieve. But I don't know if it's human nature or what it is, Bernadette, but having that other sounding board, that other person to stretch me a little more, certainly has been helpful in the past.
You said something, Suzanne, that actually I'm going to challenge. That's what you said in the last 10 seconds when you say you shouldn't need. And I would say, I would agree to that in a certain situation and I will disagree in another one. And what I mean by that, I will agree to that we do not need a coach or mentor if we don't have the intention of growing. But from the moment we have the intention of growing in whatever aspects of our life it is, but obviously tonight we're talking about Niken, why would you not want a coach or mentor? You look into any kind of field, whether you're talking an athlete, you're talking a musician, you're talking a ballet dancer, you're talking an insurance, anybody who wants to be at their peak performance, and it's a growing step, has a coach. And those who stop growing. And there's nothing wrong with that. It all depends of what is our intention. So when somebody tells me in any field, and I meet a lot of business professionals say, oh, I'm okay. I said, that's great, as long as you know that then by unconsciously, but by making that choice, you are choosing to stop learning and stop growing. So, you may want just to think of that a little bit, Suzanne.
No, I will think of that because that was profound. And I think that, it's getting to be football season. And, when you look at a football team that wants to excel, it's not that they have one coach. They have a head coach, but they've got, 15 different coaches. And each coach is assigned about doing one thing. So that certainly is, that puts a whole new light on it, Bernadette.
Absolutely. And there isn't, that to me is if there's no progress, there's stagnation. And usually when there's stagnation, that's when we start to go down. That's just the way it is. So it all depends on what is our intention, right? Because again, we are all creatures of habits. And again, our best habits get us to a certain point. But how do we get new habits? Another thing that I want to mention is too often we think, maybe you think that way, maybe some of you, that's why you don't have, or maybe we're not reaching out enough to the coaching and the mentoring that's available to us. Too often we think about, accountability. Oh my gosh, what is that? I don't want this, right? It's scary and so on. One thing that in my team, I said to people, listen, most people that I see, they tend to see accountability as the enemy. I want to actually ask you to look at accountability as your ally, because it's not about being accountable to someone else. It's about being accountable to yourself. Your coach and mentor is only here to keep you on track, to show you better ways, to support you. There's a part of a cheerleader and a part of poking at you. There's these kind of things. But it's not about, first of all, the coach and mentor is not going to ask you to do things you don't want to do, because nobody can do that anyway. Either you do or you don't, right? But the coach will be there to adjust the trajectory, will be there to help you challenge your thinking, or maybe look at things in a different way in order to open up your mind, of letting go of the past, so then you can move forward. Because when we don't let go of the past, then we just get more of the past. We don't move forward, right? So do you think of accountability as something scary, or as something that is positive, that moves you and create progress? Myself, like everybody else, do I like accountability? When I talk to my coach, I haven't done it. Do I like it? No. But I know it's just a way for me to measure my progress and see more results coming. So I don't see that as, oh my gosh, it's going to make me feel really bad. No. It's just honest checkup. It's the checking point. That's the way that I see. So also want just to answer is, how do you see it? Right? It's such interesting because, and it's also about celebrating the wins that happen. That's part of what the coach and the mentoring and the accountability is about. It's all about celebrate. Too often we say, oh, I'll celebrate this when this is done. And we forget to celebrate the little wins in between. But you know what? We don't create a big win just suddenly. It's the little wins that happens in between that create the big wins. Right? And especially when we're go-getter achievers, or we know that we capable of doing things, we focus on the things we haven't done and we forget all the things that we've done in the middle of it. And we forget that we are today, if I'm looking at it today, I'm sure for each and every one of you, if you look at who you are today and you bring yourself back to 6 months ago or 3 months ago, you were in a different spot. But we don't see it that way. We forget the struggle. And so what I'm going to say is honor that struggle and celebrate it, because this is who you become today. And focus on all, the new version of yourself today. Focus on that. Because when we are that, when we feel that way, we create more confidence for ourselves. We become bolder. I'm sure that the way you talk today is different than the way you talk to people 3 months ago or a week ago, right? But we said, well, yeah, I always talk to people like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. If you never called a person before and now you're calling one person, even if it's once every 3 days, yay, celebrate it, right? That's a victory. And then you say, okay, I did it yesterday, so now I can do it today. And then I could do it today. And then I can do it today. And that's so important because it's those little wins. When we talk on our product and business presentation, there's that slide that talks about the compounding effect. That's what I'm talking about. The compounding effect of those little changes every single day is what's going to make us better at what we do. That's what's going to make us more confident, bolder in our communication, more assertive. And being assertive is good, by the way. I'm not talking about being pushy. I'm not talking about being bully. I'm talking about being assertive. Assertive means we know what we've got. We know what we have, and we are confident about it. We're bold about it, right? And Susan, I can see you. I'd love to hear what's happening in your head right now.
I think that was from our conversation the other day, Bernadette, about not being nice, being assertive, not being, I can't remember.
Not naughty, Suzanne, just bold.
Yes. I want everyone to like me. I don't want to be pushy, but that's not being pushy. It's having that other person's best interest at heart. That's what it boils down to. It's not pussyfooting saying, well, sure, you could just get a power band and everything will be okay. When you know that the person really needs a sleep system and a water system to truly impact their life in a profound way, you'd be doing a disservice. And, to state that clearly and in a caring way and an assertive way with,
There's a difference between being assertive and being aggressive.
Absolutely. It's 2 worlds of difference. Absolutely. 2 totally worlds. You're absolutely right, Mrs. Kramer. And then, guys, it all comes back to, do we have that strong self-confidence that what we have is good. And when we know that in our gut, in our heart, well, why are we shy about it? Why are we shy? There's no reason to be shy about it. Some people like it, some people don't. That's okay. We go and find the next person who's going to like it. It's just as simple as that, right? There's lots of people out there who are looking for what we have. Why is it that we just dwell on that person who's saying no or who's hesitating? But that's also why, going back to the community and the mentoring and the coaching, it's all about working here. So our attitude is really, really important. Anyone else? We have a few more minutes.
It's called fear.
Okay, there's two people talking at the same time, so just one at a time, please.
All I wanted to say is it's called freedom from fear.
Yes, absolutely. And by the way, that book applies not to Niken in anything that we do in our life, which I love.
I am really pleased with the presentation of your topics tonight. And I did not know what had hit me, but my mentor kind of pulled back, and Al and I were really going, set goals, excited at the weekly calls, knew that I was going to have to give an accounting for how many this I did, how many this I did, and we were doing it by the numbers, you got to contact however many, and we were on it, we were doing it, and it was no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and I think it's because the goals were clear. And then when he pulled back, and we went to like once every 2 weeks, very quickly, once a month, I felt the lack. But then he has pulled out, and I have not requested that another person come in and be our mentor. And tonight you hit it on the head for me of where my get up and go went.
Excellent. I'm so glad to hear that. And by the way, guys, what I said is when we're ready, the mentor will appear. We'll know who. But at the same time, I also want to share, your mentor is not going to make you successful. The only person who's going to make you successful is yourself. Your mentor is just going to allow you to tap into more of your potential. The mentor is going to allow you to rise at the top, the things that are already in there that you may not see. The mentor is going to poke at you when it's time to poke at you. Your mentor is going to do all of that and bring to you new ideas, new habits, all of this. But the reality, sometimes I hear some people say, oh, my mentor is not doing this. And I say, don't play the blame game. If there's only one person here who's responsible for your success, it's the person in the mirror. I really believe that, right? And that's part of what the mentor is going to point at you and say, hey, sometimes I hear people, oh, my team is not doing that. I say, my upline is, I say, and is this conversation going anywhere? Right? So I think it's all about being honest with ourselves. When we are really honest with ourselves and we take responsibility, that's when marvelous things happen. Right? And by the way, by doing it and behaving that way ourselves, we become better leader to our teams. Because, we can't point out to others things that we don't really willing to correct for ourselves, right? It's all about that. So, but that's just wonderful. Absolutely go. And by the way, sometimes in your career in Niken, in your journey in Niken, you may have different mentors and different coaches. Some for a few months, some for a longer time, and sometimes some for much longer. It all depends on where you are at. And that's okay too. Because depending on where you are at, you need something different. Right? Because then if you're saying, even if you're becoming too comfortable, with your coach and mentor, time to change. Change, right? That's also the other thing. Excellent. We have another 4 minutes to go. Anyone for a last?
I just want to add that you start off by listening, and I just want to throw out, it's like I was told, the guy was taking flying lessons, and he was going to class. So he's going to class nonchalant, like another class. You go and it's the same old thing, and you listen, and you listen, and you listen. And when the guy tapped him on the shoulder and said, okay, tomorrow you're going up by yourself. He said, he panicked and said, okay, I'm ready for class. I want to listen because don't let this class go, not just an hour, but 3 hours, because I'm going up tomorrow. So he was really into listening. And so you really, it's a kind of nonchalant listening, and it's a learning listening. But when you're going up on a plane the next day, you really want to listen to everything, even though you've been over it and over it and over it. You still want to listen because, hey, tomorrow's my day. Mm-hmm. And it kicks into your confidence. And that's going to be the final result, because, we work with people, and sometimes I say, okay, come on up and do some demonstrations. And they look at me like, no, that's all right, you do it. But it's his turn. He's seen me do them, now you do them. And it doesn't, you explain, this is even in front of people, because it's a learning experience. You got to go through it, and, don't worry about making mistakes, just keep talking, because they don't know what you're doing anyway. The other people don't know. And that's one way of kind of getting it. But I think it's the confidence you reach at a point, and everybody's at a different point. But it reaches a point where you're on your own, and you just got to go with it. And it's based on all the experiences and things you've done or heard that puts you out there. And either it's going to work or it's not. And you just correct yourself as you go along. And you'll make your own mistakes and learn from that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great point. All right, guys. Well, it's almost 7 o'clock. So unless there's one last thing we have time for one more person if they want to talk. Otherwise, I think we can just close the call.
I have a question.
Yes.
Last week, I was blown away by the simplicity, and it was shared at the top of the program, of using the word solution instead of products, and using the term income producing opportunity instead of new business. That was phenomenal. I've used it this week with much success. I want to know, are there any other key terms that you've substituted that you have found to be very helpful?
It depends. It's, to me, it is, I use, when I was talking about communication, in anything, whether we're talking about the health, the income, all of it, is I always want to use words that anybody can understand and anybody can relate to. So that's, that to me is really what's driving how I talk to people. So if you're finding that you're using, and by the way, if you're finding that you're using words that you're not confident about, that you're not comfortable saying, they're the wrong words for you. I really believe it's important, because your confidence is going to show up in how you say things. So, I think there's no magic bullet. If somebody, if you're talking to women and they've never, or moms, and they worked in their life, don't talk to them about the business opportunity, because for them it's probably a very scary thought. Just talk to them as, how about I show you where to continue to stay at home but contribute to the family household. So again, it's all about relating to the people you're talking to. If you're talking to somebody who is from corporate, ask them, very often, or doctor who are just struggling for time because they're working so many long hours, say, and what do you do for fun? And, it's all about, we could have a whole different conversation about how to communicate with people, and really address those questions if you want. But, those, if you stick to those, just use them, practice. There's nothing better than practicing and using them time and time over again. And then see what works and see what doesn't work for you at this point in time. Because, you know, there's other words, but that would just take us on a totally different discussion again, which could be objections or things like this. Okay? All right, everybody. Listen, it's 7 o'clock. I want to wish you a fantastic week. Go, whatever you've learned this week, whatever you learned this week and last week, practice. Don't just learn. Practice. Learn, practice. Own it. Then teach it. That's how it is. Don't just come to learn. Not good enough. Learn, practice. Own it. Teach it. All right? Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you, Bernadette.
Bye.